Hello guys, and welcome to a new video. In this video we're going to talk about something called array lists. So array list, as the name implies, it's kind of like an array but with some added features. Now typically you would use array list in order to overcome the issues that exist in arrays. So what are those issues? So arrays are great. They do solve a lot of problems that exist in primitive variables like integers and like floats and doubles, all these kind of data types. However, there is one thing about arrays that sometimes is not really um, the best approach to use, and that is arrays are very static, meaning that once you define arrays, you would have to stick to the size of the array. So basically, if you declare your array to be of size 50, throughout your program, your array is always going to have 50 elements. You cannot increase the size, you cannot decrease the size either. And that sometimes is very limiting. Like if, for example, if I have in this example, I have my grades array, it's an integer array that's storing 100 integer values. However, what if my class grows? So I have, instead of like 100 students, I have like 120. I need to change the length. What if half of the class dropped? So basically I now have a lot of extra space in my array that's no longer needed. And remember, when the size of your program grow and the more memory it needs, the slower it will become. So it's actually going to be an efficiency problem. So that is the problem with an array. So array list is pretty much dynamically will change the size of the array. And as the name implies, it's actually array and the list together. It's kind of like enhanced arrays. So you can always add elements, you can always remove elements, and then the size is always going to be actually changing. And this is going to be really, really more like feasible as well as more efficient for larger programs that require a lot of memory usage. So let me comment this and let's do an array list. So for array list, basically the way you would define them is gonna be like this: array list type, the name of your array list equal new array list, and then the type, and then you will have parentheses. Okay, so it's like sort of like a method call. And then when we talk about object-oriented stuff in CS212, when you take that course, this is actually going to make more sense to you when we talk about classes and things like that. Okay, so array list actually exists in array list class, which is part of the util package of Java, so you have to import that. Okay, so let's actually define a real array list now, and we will see how to do that. So it's array list. Now the type is not actually an kind of like a primitive type. It has to be a class type. And remember, in Java, all the classes, they start with uppercase letters. So it's going to be like integer. Let's call this grades, new array list, integer, and then the parentheses. Now you'll get an error because array list doesn't know what it is, so you'll have to import it, just like scanner. So click that and then import array list, which is in java.util. So now the error should go away. Now the nice thing about array list is that it has a lot of built-in methods that make things a lot easier for you to do. So now, for example, if I want to add elements into my grades array list, all what I need to do is grades.add, and then let's say 10. This should actually add 10 to my array list. Notice this is an integer array list, so the values I'm actually adding are actually integer. Okay, and again, remember, this is the integer class, not the int primitive data type. Now how would I actually, so let's actually add one more, like add 20. How would I actually print the elements or the content of array list? You can use the for loop, regular for loop, or the enhanced for loop I showed you in the previous video. So It's going to be int t, for instance, grades. It's going to actually figure out the size of your array list, and then you can do sout t. So let's actually run this. You will see 10 and 20. Now, if I actually do one more grades.add 30, if I run the program again, you get 10, 20, and 30. Now, this will actually add content to the array list. So add content. Let's look into how we would delete content from the array list. So just like there is add, there is, I think, remove. So remove, and by remove, you need to provide the index. So let's say index 0. So index 0 is actually the first element in the array list. So now if I have for loop, let's actually remove this one. So if I run this, now we end up with 20 and 30. So we added this in the beginning, we removed the first one, and then we basically printed the content of the array list. Now it's only 20 and 30. You can obviously keep adding, keep removing, things like that. Now, with array list, you can get the size of your array list, and that's actually with size. So size, if you see what that documentation was, it returns an integer. So now if I do sout, for instance, let me just cut that. So you should be able to see 3. We started with 3. If I copy this, paste it after the remove, now let's see, it's basically now 2 after we remove the first one. Okay, so you can actually do like the for int I is 0, I is less than like the size, which is grades.size, and I plus plus, exactly just like an array. But this actually is quicker, and we just did this. So there is add, there is remove, and there is, as we said, the size. It actually returns the size of the array list. There is also get, and there is also set. So get actually allows you to return actual element from array list, and set actually allows you to actually change your array list. So basically, in order to get the element, all what you need is the index of that element. To set, you basically need two pieces of data, the index as well as the new value. So let's look into an example. So let's do the set. So we started, let me remove this grade star remove, and this one actually we don't want it. So let me say that I want to change this 20 to 1000. So all what I need to do is grades.set. Now notice how it actually helps me to kind of identify how this method works. So the index 0, the new value is 1000. Okay, so now if I run this, you can see as the first element has been updated to 1000. Similarly, you can do with get. So if I do sout grades.get index 0, 1, 2, for instance, if I run this, you get actually a 30. That's actually this one. Okay, so you get the point. So again, the way and the reason you would use array list is because arrays are static. Once you define them, you're stuck with their sizes. In a lot of your programs, you will find yourself you need more flexibility, and then the structure you're using needs to be dynamic, because the program sometimes might need to delete some elements, or in some cases might need to add new elements to your existing structure, making the use of array list really the way to go. Okay, so hope that was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.